Now let's rephrase this idea of the Maharal in terms of an incredible metaphor that was given by Rabbi Akiva, who taught Torah in contradiction to the decrees of the Roman Empire, thus endangering his life. And this surprising fact was pointed out to someone. Why fight? In English we say, fight City Hall, the municipality. You're endangering your life. Life is precious. Spare your life and don't teach Torah to people when it's punishable by death. And he said this is like a metaphor of a fish in the water, and the fox, the wily, smart fox says, you're a small fish, there are big fish, you will be eaten. Here, come on the dry land where there's no big fish. And the fish says, here my existence may be threatened by other factors, but on land I cannot live because a fish without water cannot live. This is what God was saying when he held the mountain over their head. If you decide that there are things in which keeping the Torah will weaken your existence, or keeping the Torah will present seeming or real challenges, you're right. Just like the fish in the water can be eaten by a bigger fish. But without the Torah, you'll be like the fish on the dry land. Your death will be guaranteed. That is what he was saying. And this is a really very powerful idea and a very powerful way of phrasing it. Now we come to the Parsha of Mishpatim. And this is the Parsha where at the end, as I said, we return to the events of Mount Sinai. And one of them is, in fact, in this week's Parsha, the declaration, Na'aseh v'nishma. We will do and we will say. And there's an absolutely beautiful explanation of this in the Talmud, the same Talmudic passage which speaks about the threat of the mountain held over their heads. And it says, and listen carefully to the wording, at the time that the children of Israel preceded the word Na'aseh, we will do, to the word Nishma, we will hear, 600,000 angels ascended and attached 2 crowns to each head of the children of Israel, 1 crown corresponding to their declaration of Na'aseh, and the 2nd crown corresponding to their declaration of Nishma. Na'aseh being we will do, Nishma, we will hear. The 600,000, we know that is the number of men who went out of Egypt. There were obviously more people than that. There were families, women and children. So the 600,000 were the counted heads of households, but that has become traditionally in scriptural and Talmudic interpretation kind of the classic number representing the whole of Israel, and hence it was 600,000 angels who attached these crowns. Rashi says in the Talmud the crown was Ziv Hashchina, the glowing of the divine presence. So it was a light, a brilliant light. The Talmud continues that when the Jewish people committed the sin of the golden calf, the crowns were taken away. Then the Talmud continues, but Moshe took them. And the Talmud, in a final statement of explanation, says, but in the future time, they will be returned to us. Because the verse regarding the arrival of Mashiach says, Simchat olam rosham, that there will be an eternal joy upon their heads, and upon their heads is referring to the fact that these 2 crowns will return to this. Now we'll come back in a second to this thing. Moshe took them, but we're going to get them in the future. Well, what happens to Moshe then? Very interesting point. But in the meanwhile, I want to dwell briefly on the idea of what it means that they got 2 crowns. And specifically, it doesn't say, when the Jews said, Na'aseh v'nishma, they got 2 crowns, one corresponding to Na'aseh, we will do, a second one corresponding to Nishma, we will hear. Rather, it says, they did this in response, and in Hebrew the expression is, B'sha shehigdimu, at the time that they first said Na'aseh, then Nishma. So they're giving them a crown as a reward for putting Na'aseh first. And yet they're getting 2 crowns. So by putting Na'aseh first, they actually get a crown for Na'aseh and a crown for Nishma. Now, there's actually a simple explanation for this. When you say, I will do something, can you do it without knowing what it is? So the doing implies, on the one hand, a commitment, not requiring knowledge, but the actual implementation you do have to hear. So the Na'aseh includes within it also hearing what the mitzvah is and then doing it. The second word, Nishma, we will hear, also means in Hebrew, we will understand. It means in addition to committing ourselves to the fulfillment of the commandments, we also commit ourselves to study and try to understand them intellectually. And both of these are very important because this becomes an internalization process in which the person becomes to identify vis-a-vis his intellect and emotions with the commandments. And this indeed will happen. When will it happen? When he puts his commitment to the Torah before his understanding that this is a divine tradition, that this is God's word. If you do it the other way around, nishma v'na'aseh, first let me hear, even if they would not be like the nations which rejected the Torah, this would not be the true acceptance of the Torah. They would not even get one crown for this. Because saying, let me hear it and then decide, even if my decision is positive, that's not a crown. A crown is something above the person. Keter is crown in Hebrew, and in Kabbalah, it represents a transcendent level, which is beyond the person. Saying, I will listen when I understand, and if I agree with it, I'll do it, can't get a person a crown because that's just logic. That's self-serving in a way. Even on a spiritual level. Some people are spiritually self-serving. Now, if you say Naaseh first, you're not going to be like that. I humble myself before God's will. That deserves a crown. And yet we're told you actually get 2 crowns for that because you get a crown of understanding as well. This commitment will actually make your understanding more deep. So let me add one more idea. I'll put that, I think, in the next piece.